What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis, of course, watching TWA Motorsports, and in today's video we're going to continue the progress on the red truck. Hopefully this will be the end of what I'm doing for now. I'm going to put that cold air intake that's up there on it, but I got a set of helper bags that is specifically designed for the Beltec notch. The other thing I did yesterday, and you can't tell because I didn't wash the entire truck, but I washed the frame. This thing was so bad. I should have done that before I even started the lowering process. Every bolt I took out, I got a dirt in my eye. But I wanted to wash those inner fender liners. I haven't put those back in yet. I haven't put the mud flap deletes on the back like I did in the front because I wanted to wash this. So I kind of cleaned these up as well. These are the inner liners that go in here, but I wanted those out of the way so they didn't impede with what we were doing as far as it goes with the helper bag. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna move this thing up just a hair, and then I'm gonna jack it up, I'm gonna get the rear wheels off, and we're gonna start there. I'm gonna show you all the parts that I've got and kind of talk to you about how they work. I don't necessarily know because they didn't come with instructions. Part of it is pretty self-explanatory, but the other I'm not sure. So let's get this thing up in the air and let's get started. Got the wheels off, got it up in the air, and the frame still looks, it's better, believe me. This was all coated in dirt. I actually power washed this inner. Anyway, it's better. So we got some airline. Obviously we're gonna need that. We've got two bags, and these are like the double, like, I don't remember what they call them, convoluted, I believe is what the proper term is. And so let's see if we can open one up here. There we go. Anyway, these are surprisingly like more heavy duty, I believe, than what we've had in the past. Check that out. So kind of how this works is this actually sets in this opening right here. So between the pad and the C-notch, this thing sets. And so the last kits that I've had, and I was gonna possibly cut up the Ride Tech kit, but the Ride Tech kit, because there was no notch, it actually bolted to the frame like right around here. So I would have had to cut a bunch of stuff up, and there wasn't the ability to cut it and drill holes because of where the mount was. It was kind of like here in the center. I maybe could have made it work, but since there's a notch, I'm glad there's somebody that makes something like this. So this comes from Suspension Source, I believe. I'll try to list a link in the description down below. But I happened to stumble across this. It comes with all the hardware, obviously, and comes with brackets, but we're gonna have to get these things out because I'm not exactly sure, and a bunch of line, that's for sure. I'm not exactly sure how this all mates up, okay? I think this makes sense to me a little bit. I think this is the bottom plate, but when I say that, like, check this out. So we've got a single hole in the bottom, which makes sense, okay? We would have a single bolt on that. What doesn't make sense to me, however, is where this mounts, okay? I know where the top mounts because it's actually made to bolt around. We're gonna take a couple bolts out and put this in place on the frame here. I understand that, and I'll unwrap these in a second, but the bottom doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, unless we got to drill some holes. So let me see if I can kind of spread this out, get an idea maybe how things go. I'm going to dump some of this hardware out. Some of this hardware is like really big and I don't necessarily understand it all. But, and maybe, oh, actually, you know what? I bet those are longer bolts to try to cover passing through the frame here. I bet those are longer bolts for here because we're gonna have to take, I think, 2 of these out. Part of this I understand. Like I said, the top is pretty self-explanatory, so kind of they are side specific and it doesn't like mark what side goes where. But this valve, okay, that we air this up with, this guy right here, that's gonna go on the inside so we have clearance. I was wondering because if you put the wrong side in, it will line up with this lower hole, but you'd lose a lot of your notch. It actually goes, I swap sides, and you can see we're gonna have to take that upper bolt out there and the center bolt out over here. So this bolt on this side and that upper bolt on that side, that's not a problem. But before we do that, I don't think we'll be able to manage to put this together like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a couple, and these, check this out, they're recessed. And we have a recessed headed bolt to go in there. So let's see if we can find the one that fits, and that's that. Perfect. And we'll get a couple of those and get at least the top plate on for this side. That fits pretty good in there. That looks pretty nice. So like I said, I think you need to assemble these before you go installing them, at least I think. And then I'm sitting here thinking, like, how in the heck is the bottom gonna go through? But I'm also seeing some holes in this pad. You see that? And I'm thinking that it may line up with those holes in that pad for the bottom mount. But I need to try, I'm gonna have to put the bottom mount on first. But if you look at kind of the way this thing's designed, I think those holes, oh my gosh, it looks like they line up. And I actually think it goes, maybe goes this way. How crazy would it be? Okay, I'm pretty sure those holes line up. What a great design. Holy smokes. I never get that lucky. So the downside is, like I said, you're really gonna have to put all this together. I don't know how you would reach. Well, maybe you could reach. I don't know, there's no way. I'm not exactly sure how you could reach that. So you were gonna have to put that on first. So let's go ahead and put that on the bottom for now. I got the bottom plate on, and it for sure sets on the plate, or the, yeah, what I would call that, the pad on the bottom. But I'm thinking that this kit was designed for multiple uses, right? So these helper bags probably work on other kits, because all of this hardware here, we're not gonna use. I may end up using those depending on how long my 3/4 are. And, but anyway, we've got 2 of these bolts installed, but there's no way to get the other 2 into that plate because the bag is blocking it. And there's no way to put the bag in after you put the plate down, because that would ride right in the center of that plate. So it only has 2 smaller bolts holding the outside, which honestly, there's gonna be pressure up against this. I'm not concerned about that. I'm not worried about this moving up and down, because when this thing's inflated, which we're gonna keep at least, you know, 20 pounds in it at all times, 10 pounds, something like that, it's gonna be smashed completely up against the frame and that pad. So we shouldn't have any issues as far as like this separating or whatnot. But these 2 smaller recessed ones, I don't remember what size they are. They're, I think they're metric, but the top ones are standard. This is a 4mm for these guys. And then I think these were 7/16. And then we need to take our cover out and go ahead and plug this in. Now, I need this to probably face back or this direction. I don't want it facing towards the frame, or we won't be able to get that in there. But comes with thread sealant already on it. So let's use I think this is an 18mm. I think it's standard too, but I don't have that size wrench. I'm gonna take this out. We're gonna thread this in and tighten it down. Completely disregard what I told you because the top swivels. I thought it was stationary, but that's nice. So we're gonna point it that way until we get it up into place. But now I need to go ahead and knock loose the 3/4 inch bolts of the 2 that we're going to be attacking, which I think is this one and this one. So we'll put a wrench back behind. I know it's gonna mess up my paint. We'll repaint it, not a big deal. I need to paint some of this other area anyway. You can see I've gotten all the 2 bolts out that I needed out. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna see if we can sneak this guy in here, put our bolts through. And I will tell you, I measured the other bolts and they're shorter, so I don't wanna use those. This may take some persuasion. If I remember right, they didn't go 100% through like I wanted them to. So we may have to drive them in. Sometimes they'll screw in. Sometimes they won't. That one went. So we got one of the 2. We'll get the other one in. It just may take some adjusting up and down. May have to raise it or lower it a little bit. One of the things I just noticed, I don't know if you can see this, but that plate, we actually need to turn it 180 degrees, which I think we can do without taking this all back apart. Oh, no, I don't think, that doesn't make me feel very comfortable because it loosened that bolt in the bottom. I don't think I have something that will fit in there without taking this back out. After a little bit of a fight, I was able to get both these bolts in and the nut on the back. I don't know why, I'll tell you why. Because when you're drilling through this frame, you're kind of going up or at an angle. It's really hard to get a straight through drill a bit to go through, right? So I think this one was off just probably a 1/16 of an inch. So I just kind of opened up the hole a little bit by putting my drill bit through, and now we're good. So that may be an issue that you kind of come up with, but everything fits like it's supposed to. The only thing I need to do now is I'd like to go knock out the other side, because I think when I lift the rear end, we're gonna have to lift the rear end in order to get the bottom bolts into place here. So let me go knock the other side out off camera, and I need to retorque these. I think they go to 60. Now that I got the other side done, you can see Cam helped me out here lift the rear end, and I've got those, like, they go straight in. That is so perfect. So what we need to do is we need to grab a washer, and it comes with a nylock nut here. We'll push this down, see if we can get in there and get that started. And I think those are 7/16 on the bottom. And so, oh, that's so good. Perfect. I'm telling you guys, when kits are designed the way they're supposed to work, it is so incredibly nice. I've had so many things you've had to trim or cut or do something different. This one's going to be a little more challenging, because I've got to get underneath this pad here, but I think I might be able to do it. No, maybe not. Might have to have a little more light over here, I believe. Sorry, my light's kind of crappy tonight, but to get this one, you're gonna do yourself a favor and take I think it's a T40, or let's see here. Yeah, T40. And you're gonna undo the T40 that goes here. There's one down below, down here. And then I just loosen the inner one right there. But this will pull back and give you the ability to reach up in there and actually put this together correctly. Well, before we go on to this stuff here, I wanted to show you guys, guess I probably need a light, honestly. We got everything mounted and it works really well. That mounts up nice, but I'm dreading the next part. You can see that I got the frame somewhat painted, looks a little nicer than what it did. My least favorite part is putting this back in, and I'm gonna show you guys that. I'll probably time lapse it because it's gonna be a struggle. It's just, that thing fits so tight up in there, and then the liner has to fit like behind this. So like pieces of it slide in there, but you have to get it up in first. But like I said, I'll kind of show you probably more in a time lapse than anything. I am gonna go ahead and take these out. I just put these in here to keep these clips from falling out on both sides. So we'll have to have those out of place. And so let me do that first off camera, and then I'll set the camera up and kind of time lapse me installing this. This side actually went way easier than the other side. I didn't show you guys the other side on camera. I've kind of got it back in place, but I don't know. Yeah, it's just something about it. I think a majority of the reason it gives you such trouble is they lose their shape when you take them off. So I power washed these things while I had them off, and power washed obviously the inner fenders and whatnot. But yeah, they just lose their shape, and they don't want to go. This little area that tucks in behind this plastic is what gives you the issue. So anyway, we've got it in place. The next thing I want to do is I want to install these guys. Now this is the mud flap delete that we got. Bought these off Amazon. I'll list them in the description. I just think they look a little cleaner. Now look, these things are like $70, I think. So they're not gonna fit. Look, I don't think they're gonna fit like GM. They have, some of them have a two-sided tape ring here, which I've noticed doesn't touch anything. And it's only on certain pieces. Let me see if this other one, oh, okay. Yeah, like, so for instance, this one right here that goes in the back has a two-sided tape, but it just doesn't do much. So I don't necessarily think you need that on there. There's 4 screws that hold this thing in place. You have the factory screws. I wish that they would put a tab here to mount it like the factory did, but obviously, you know, look, maybe there's some more expensive ones out there than the ones I got on Amazon. But once we get it kind of up into place, see if I can get a couple of these screws started. I think I can. And I like to start these first, and then I'll roll underneath and get the other one started. Oh. Sometimes these things like to move too, yeah. Starting this project early in the morning and I don't have a ton of light out here. The reason I want to start those is the bottom ones kind of push it up into the flare. And you can see it's not 100% fitment, but let me get underneath. We'll put the 2 screws on the bottom that come in from the bottom. Hopefully I can get some light under there, here. And that'll be installed. And the texture is different even. I wish the texture was closer, but it still looks better than what it was. Let's see if we can get some light under here. This kind of helps pinch the bottom of this together too. And you may have to take it all back apart and move your clips. Your clips like to move around when you're putting your inner liner in. This one seems good. Remember, you're just going into plastic. What are these? I think these are like T15s or T10s. Can't even see the size. T15. So once I get the bottom ones tightened, then I move in and do the front or the insides. And I think these will conform a little better, you know, as they get some heat in them in the sun. But way better than this ugly mud flap. Not the most precise fit. You can see, yeah. But still, look, for what I paid for them, this one back here, I couldn't get it to go up any further. Like I said, with some time in the sun, maybe they'll kind of come around. But at this point, we can put our wheels back on. I'm gonna go ahead and go underneath. We need to get this stuff installed. So I'm trying to figure out, I would really like to put a compressor on down the road, but for now I'm gonna go ahead and hook it up like this, and these are all push connections, so we're gonna have to cut this to fit. You wanna make sure you get a really good cut, which I'll show you here in a minute, but we need to come out of the bags, tee off with that tee, and I'd like to, since I removed the spare tire, I'd like to put it right here. Well, I see that. The problem is, you know what? I bet I can drill a hole right here in the middle of this and we can mount it right there. And if I ever decide to do that, you can replace this cap. This cap comes off. In fact, let's just take the cap off so we can drill a hole right in the middle of it. And that is where I'm going to mount the Schrader for this guy. Nice. Yep. We'll drill a hole this size in the middle of this, and that is where we're gonna mount this thing. You can see I've got a hole drilled in this. I put this here, tried to center it as much as I could. It's a little off, But like I said, I can always buy a new one of these caps or get one at a salvage yard or something, since they pop off when I decide to put a compressor on this thing. And I'll probably put a black cap on instead of this like polished one. That one just kind of looks out of place. I don't know, maybe it's not too bad since it's got a chrome bumper. But all right, I'm gonna go ahead, since this threads through and it's gonna be really hard to size it, let's go ahead and cut a piece of hose. I've got a brand new razor blade here. I need to invest in, they make a cutter for this kind of line. I need to invest in one of those. I feel like I bought one, but I have no idea where it's at. The factory cuts it pretty nice. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give myself ample room. I've got a ton of this hose. We're gonna set this down on the concrete, and I'm just gonna push straight down and cut it. Now, this piece right here, we're gonna go ahead, and it's just a push fitting. So that's it right there, connected. If you ever wanna disconnect it, you push down on the collar, and generally I like to have the collar up when I'm pushing it in, but if you ever need to disconnect it, you just push on the collar, push the collar down, and pull the line out. Crazy how it works. But we got a good connection. Let's push this through that opening back there. Push that back on. You can see the hose kind of dangling down through there. It's got some curve in it. Like I said, I'm gonna get a black cap for that. I don't know, it doesn't look terrible, but it'd look better with like a, and there's quite a bit of thread sticking out, so I'd like to have like a longer black cap. I don't think I have one here. Now we're gonna get underneath. We'll put the T in, get to the bags, zip tie everything to the frame, and we should be really close to finished. Now that we're under here, you can see our fittings that come out of the bags, and they swivel, which is great. I'm gonna try to go into that fitting. I'm gonna cut a piece that is gonna go up, hopefully above that brake line bracket, above the shock, kind of over here on the frame, and then come down this cross member here. And I think I'm gonna try to put my T-fitting like somewhere in here, so we've got just like a straight shot to our piece that we've already installed. I think that'll be a, for now, it'll be a good working area. And then like right here is where I can mount my compressor when I decide to go that route. But I'm gonna do the same thing over there. We'll just kind of zip tie up on the frame with that wiring harness, come over and then down this, and that should be all we have to do. Let's just see if we can cut a couple pieces. Like I said, I know I've got enough, so I'll cut them a little long, and then I can use this for a backer when I'm cutting, since I don't have the actual tool. You can see kind of what I've done. I was able to go up and over. I zip tied to the hole inside that, and then I came up around the shock, zip tied here in the corner, zip tied here, here, and we've got our T in the middle. So what we'll do now is do just the exact same thing on the other side and plug all these T fittings in, and we are good to go. This is kind of what the finished product looks like here. We've got that bag plugged in. I got the line ran over to the T and plugged up. I zip tied here. I put a little bit of loom on just to protect from these jagged edges. Probably need to put a zip tie right here too, actually. I'll do that. And we should be able to go ahead. I'm gonna put the wheels on off camera, and we will give it a test here and see what happens. I think I actually want to set it down on the ground, and then we can get a true guess of, you know, obviously we'll be able to hear hopefully if it's leaking. Sometimes you have to go back and just make sure your plugs are secured if you didn't get them pushed in good. It has a pretty positive feel when you push them in, but look, the other thing you can do is you can get some soapy water and spray on all of your joints and make sure that you don't have any leaks anywhere. At this point, we got it set down on the ground. It just started raining, by the way, which sucks. I'm trying to catch this between rain, but this is no pressure whatsoever. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over there, I'm gonna use this gauge, and we'll kind of go through cycling pressures. I think max pressure is 100, and I believe, because there's no instructions, I'm just basing it off the ones I've had before. And then like the minimum you need to keep in them is probably 10 pounds. So let's just start. We'll go up and down. I'll kind of test it while you guys are watching. We'll see what we get here. Definitely need to get me a cap, but that's fine. So 0 pounds. I think it's leaking on my plug here. Uh-oh. It's leaking somewhere. I got a leak. It's coming right, it's bleeding right back off. Let me see if I can find, it sounds like actually sounds like it's in this cap here. May have to get under it and see. Well, I found the leak. It was actually in the T-fitting where it runs in from the bumper. Where the bumper piece runs into the T-fitting. So, it's working now. Just had to push it in a little better. So right now that's 15 pounds. That's 25. That's 50. I think my compressor is probably going to kick on in a minute. There's 65. And I may have my compressor set low for my grease gun. So it may not, there's 80. I mean, the most I ever went on my other truck was 90. And there's 90 right there. So that is a substantial gap. Let's set it down now. This will work perfect for a trailer. Here's what I'd like to do though. I'm gonna let it set for about an hour and we're gonna see if it's got a slow leak. Because sometimes you'll think you'll have it, you know, you don't have a massive leak, but you end up having like just a small leak that bleeds off, you know, 5 pounds and 30 minutes. And you just need to go back and check all your connections if that's the case. So that's 20. Like I said, 5 to 10 pounds is generally what I keep in them. I'm gonna drain it down to 0, or try to. So there is 6 pounds. It doesn't want to go much lower than that. It's as far down as I can get it. Let's go up one more time. I'm gonna set it around 70 and let it set for like I said, probably an hour. Well, I turned the wick up on my compressor. It was indeed turned down. I have to turn it down when I'm using my grease gun because it like max is 80 pounds or something. So this is 95 pounds in the rear. And so I'm gonna let it set at that pressure level for a while. And we will come back and make sure there's no leaks here in, like I said, maybe an hour or so. But that's 95, and that is a massive pickup, especially when I'm going to be hauling like a trailer with a car on it, or, you know, loading the back up with stuff. I think this is going to work great, and it fixes my screw up where I forgot to put my bump stop in. Doesn't look like it's moved much. I will say I was leaving the attachment that I was airing it up with on, and it seemed to be leaking when I did that. So we had 95 pounds in it. I'm using a different gauge. Actually, I can't use that gauge. Let me grab another one real quick. Let's try this gauge. I don't know how good the battery is, but let's see what it says here. .5. Now, look, here's what I'll tell you. Every time you press that, it lets some out. So I am completely fine with that. It's been sitting a little over an hour, and that's gonna work. I think we'll know a little more as we put a trailer on and whatnot, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed this install on this thing. I'm pretty impressed. I actually like those bags a little better than the ones I've used in the past. So I have that single bag type setup, like what you guys saw on the last truck. I have that same thing on the green truck here behind me. So yeah, I'll try to list this in the link in the description. Suspension Source, I believe, is the name of the company, if I remember right. But like I said, it does two things. It takes up the area where my bump stop, I forgot to put that in, and I think it adds some stuff as far as like if you're gonna haul or use your truck as a truck and it's lowered, this is almost a must. Okay, so when you lower one, it seems like any weight you put on it at all, even a small trailer or just putting stuff in the bed, will cause it to sag. And I hate that look. I hate that Cali lean style look, or, you know, where it's lower in the back, even when you just have a spare tire in there. So hopefully you guys, like I said, did enjoy this video. If you did, please, like always, smash that thumbs up button. Guys, if you are not subscribed, go down, hit that subscribe. Of course, like always, ring that bell notification. That will notify you every single time we do something on this or anything else. Stay tuned to see what we work on next.